All right, let's go. We're going to talk about 5 ways to build your adaptability as a busy woman doc. Right? Let's go. It's not easy, right? What do we have today? So, women docs, we are trained to diagnose complexities, but we were not trained to design career flexibility, which is what we are asked to do all the time, is to be flexible, to bend and move. So if you feel stretched but successful, high achieving but boxed in, committed to your values but craving freedom and flexibility is what I hear from a lot of docs that I coach. You're not behind. We just need some new skill sets, right? There's nothing wrong. It's just that we have to keep learning how to navigate this environment that we're in. Do you feel stuck? I have a YouTube video talking about this and has like 60,000 views on it. So it seems that women docs feel stuck. And this brings up something, something familiar in folks, because obviously they've shared it with a lot of their women doc friends and people have watched it. And what can we do in this situation, right? So women docs feel stuck because adaptability was never clearly taught. We're so good at learning. Like we can just take a huge textbook and break it down and remember the facts. But, no one taught us how to stay flexible, how to, stay in our values, how to navigate just constant asks and constant changes. Um, Medicine rewards endurance, if you can hang in there, but our brain really needs some flexibility to navigate all the changes. Recently, a friend of mine was asked to do more at work, and she was just very upset about it, crying about it, feeling so anxious about what she's being asked because it just seems impossible to her. Like she just does not seem that, she doesn't see a way to really handle it or make it okay in her life right now. So, how do we stay adaptable? And I'm certainly not implying you should stay in a place that you don't feel valued. I'm not saying that in any way. Just saying that how do we build our skills so we know, when we can sense when those stress circuits are just staying activated and we just have that chronic stress or our creativity feels narrowed. We just don't even see the options anymore. The options seem so limited or somebody else has to present them to us. We don't think that we have like the agency to change and to make some moves. And so that's the challenge is when people don't feel like they have the agency to make some moves. So when we're adaptable, we can stay cognitively flexible so we can see solutions more easily. We can emotionally regulate. That can strengthen when we learn some new skills, especially adaptability skills, which we're going to talk about today. And when meaning becomes visible again, when we realize why we do the work we do, as opposed to just getting stuck in kind of menial tasks, to step back a little bit and think, what are the consequences of your day-to-day work? Do we have to stay flexible like this? Do we just have to keep bending and twisting? I really want for you to feel cognitively flexible, but not ridiculous, where you have to feel like you have to put your feet over your head. Again, that emotional regulation strengthens. So we feel like, like my friend that was asked to do those things. If we're emotionally regulated, we can see the asks, we can see the possibilities, we can build our cognitive flexibility and see if it's possible. If it's not possible, then we can make an argument against why those changes or those requests are not possible. And also that purpose in our work, we need to define that and find that day to day so we don't feel like we're bent over backwards. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the neuroscience of adaptability. How do we get there? How do we build it? Why is it okay that we need to build new skills? We're going to identify an area where rigidity is just, taking a lot of your time and energy. It's draining. Build one flexible system to create more freedom and leave with a clear next step aligned with your particular values. It's not theory, right? We can do this. This is practical. This is implementation. This is applied brain science for real schedules and real life. All right. This is for women docs who want the flexibility, but you do not want to sacrifice your excellence. You want freedom, but you don't want to abandon your purpose driven work. You want systems that support you and your lovely brain, of course, what I always think about. And you don't want to get hurt on this journey of supporting others and building your community and doing amazing work for others. And you're just not willing to sacrifice your values. That is not who you are. Okay. So this is for you. Does this sound familiar? Let's keep going. All right, what you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. That's from the amazing Jane Goodall, who did amazing work around the globe and really brought us so many insights and practical next steps to really remember that we can all make a difference. And even by doing nothing, we're doing something. If we're doing nothing, we've decided we're not going to do anything. If we're in that stunned phase where we can't make a decision, we've made a decision to stay there. So even doing nothing or feeling stunned is what we're doing. So we have to decide, where do we want to be? What kind of difference do we want to make? So how do we even build this? We're going to define, what are we referring to about agility and adaptability and IQ and EQ and how they all fit together. When is the time to change? Put in the comments here, where the video is, put in the comments, do you know what AQ is? Have you heard of adaptability quotient? Which one do you like best? If you know them all, AQ, EQ, IQ, just go ahead and put it in the comments. Do you feel like you know when you need to change, or you know how to influence change? That's, something that we can all pause and think about. Do I know how to influence change? Can I build a culture of design and learning in my own place in healthcare? Even if you're not, the CEO, can we do this? Can you and I do this right now? So what does it even look like if we're adaptable? Well, let's look at a study. So this is a study just published this year. Um, and the title is by Dr. Fingeret, and they looked at coaching for personal and professional development in academic surgery, conceptual framework. It's an interesting study because surgeons, I'm not a surgeon, so they have demanding lives, right? But this coaching for surgeons is a structured, evidence-based approach that enhances self-awareness, leadership, and well-being for the surgeons. It centers on reflection and goal setting, which is something most of us don't take time to do because it's just too busy. You're just going from case to case to case, right? It promotes this adaptive learning. That's what we're here talking about, adaptive learning. Resilience. Okay, we all got mad at that word during COVID. We were sick of being asked to be resilient. But resilience is the ability to bounce forward from a stressor. Maybe some will say bounce back, but to navigate a stressor. Can we do that? Professional fulfillment. When did you leave? What day did you leave work? And you're like, "Oh, that was a good day. I just loved interacting." Maybe it's the trainees. They always get me with their like enthusiasm and their hope and their amazing learning and their I just think their dedication. I see them following with tasks. Of course, not everybody's perfect, but that gives me a lot of hope. That gives me fulfillment to just even, help to teach them or be a small part of their learning journey. So this is a randomized controlled trial demonstrating significant reductions in burnout and improvements in resilience and quality of life in surgeons when they were exposed to coaching. What challenges did they find? Because like any good change, any change, there's hesitations. I've been personally like experiencing this. I know what I want to do, but there's like this pause in between what I know what I want to do and before I take action. You have that? Yeah, that hesitation, just that pause. Put yes in the comments if you have that. Yes, absolutely. All caps, yes. Um, Well, sometimes there's cultural resistance because coaching is thought to sometimes there's a misconception that's equated with remediation, like something's wrong. The only reason you're getting a coach is something's wrong. What if everything's right and you just want to keep learning? Like that reframe, like they talked about. There's limited time, so that's always a challenge with surgical schedules, and there's a cost. Most coaches have a cost to them, and the cost may be time, it may be energy, but of course there are, one-on-one coaching is generally one-on-one. It can be group. And so any of that usually takes a facilitator, a trained coach, so that could take money. And if you're taking surgeons of the OR, that can take money. Okay. So they integrated coaching into surgical training. for professional development, to shift the paradigm that coaching is a tool to use when you're being trained as a surgical resident, to work on your agility, your adaptability, to reframe what is growth and excellence. It's lifelong. We're always learning. There's always something to be improved, new skills to even gain insights about. The old saying is, we don't know what we don't know. But a lot of times, like I said, I did that video on women docs feeling stuck, and 60,000 people have seen it. And it is because women docs are feeling stuck, and their friends understand this, their patients understand this, their family understand, their partners understand this. It's like it just needs something to help you get across that next level of your journey in a career sense. So I like to think of coaching as the small stepping stones to help you get across the river safely. Okay. A lot of touch points, learning insights, and that we all need to just keep building our skills. We're not done. There's always new concerns, new changes, something we have to respond to, like that doc I had told you about when she was asked to see more patients. It's just really like she just couldn't even think about how she was going to get that done because of the level that she was at right there. So adaptability, what are we referring to? Well, there's some folks who have now coined the term AQ, so adaptability quotient, as opposed to IQ and EQ, which we're well familiar with, right? And we know as leaders, as a doc, even if you don't have a stamped leadership, title, you are a leader. You lead, the patients and their families. You lead your clinical teams. You lead a lot of teams. Probably, your trainees you lead. So you are a leader, even if you don't have a stamp title as a leader. So adaptability, how quickly we can learn, apply, adjust. That doesn't sound too bad. Learn, apply, adjust. Again, learning, we're good at. We love learning, right? And then intelligence quotient, just strict intelligence. So there's a doc by the name of Carol Dweck who wrote the book called Mindset. And she talks a lot about those with fixed mindset, those with growth mindset. Fixed mindset is like the IQ. You think IQ is static, you're a brick, where the growth mindset is more of a garden approach, right? So you constantly learn, you apply new ways, new skills, new ways to learn, new ways to build your skills, and you work hard at building skills. And her whole point is if you think you can grow, you're more of a garden than a brick. And you are more of a garden than a brick. Um, then we can get farther. We can have more positive emotions towards change, towards navigating change, towards adapting, towards agility. And emotional intelligence is what we need to know to manage ourselves, to manage others, to manage institutions. So we need to have those tools, all of them actually. So again, it doesn't sound too bad, right? We can learn, we can apply something, and then we can adjust it. We can see how it goes. We may need to iterate, right? So how do we know when it's time to change? When is it time to change? It's Monday, it's Tuesday, today's Monday. So this works out perfectly. Why do we need to change? There's so many reasons, right? We need a fresh start. We have something that's not going well. Those might be called pain points. You want more time, you want more flexibility, you want more freedom, you want to feel like you're in control. I just had a young doc reach out to me. She has two little kids, and she's trying to design what her life could look like with two little kids and maybe working part-time, maybe starting something else. How do you navigate? What are the options? That's what where those pain points, a lot of times we're willing to change when something isn't going well. When everything's perfect, we're not so willing to put any time toward change. Um, the other time we're ready to change, something makes us really angry. Something makes us really sad. Something's going on in the government, something's going on in the community, and you're angry about it. Something's going on in your own family. You see a lot of people start foundations when there's been a trauma in the family, a a serious disease. They're angry that this is where their family is, that they want to provide more resources to other people. So our strong emotions of like, this is not all right, and I want it better, and I want it different. Those are called our pain points. Those are the reasons we move, right? I mean, the whole reason I started Brain Fresh 6.5 years ago, that's my company, Brain Fresh. I'd like to use neuroscience to further people because I was in a position or I just couldn't believe the status quo. It had to get better. It was just ridiculous. Um, and I wasn't seeing anyone that was moving as fast as I wanted things to move. So I was like, all right, I'm going to build my own party bus, put people in it, put some women docs in there and let's go. Let's navigate ourselves. Or there's competition, people are surpassing you at work. We have a lot of evaluations, right? Like we all get our reviews. Are you relevant in your team at work? All of these things concern us. It may be why we're willing to change. How are we going to change? How do you start to be adaptable? Well, you actually have to know where you're going, what's important to you, what's your vision for the future. You're here. Where do you want to go? If you don't even know where you want to go to, then how are we going to set a strategy or an approach to get there? So a lot of times this is the issue with the women docs that I coach. They're just frustrated by where they are, really frustrated or scared, like that one friend of mine who was just crying about more clinical asks. And like, where do you want to go? Like, what would you like more of? What would you like less of? What is a dream? What is like an amazing dream of where you want to get to? So a lot of us haven't just taken the time to even think about that. If once you do, you got to do that. And that's what we do when I start coaching people. That's the first thing we do is we take some time. Where are you now? Where would you like to go to? What is a crazy idea where you could get to? Um, what could it look like? What would be amazing about that? How would it feel to live that life every day? Think about it. That's just like let yourself dream a little bit because most of us have been in medicine like so regimented, like we're just trying to get, graduate from, med school, the residency, to fellowship, to be staff, and then maybe you're having family, you're having kids and you have a partner, and you're just trying to make it at work, and then there's more and more and more asks, and you haven't really slowed down, like what is going well, what isn't going well. So that's what coaching is an opportunity to kind of pause and think about where you are. And in Fresh Path MD, that's my membership for women docs. We do as well get together as a group and, in the higher levels, we have 3 levels of Fresh Path MD. So come and join us. If you want more information, just put it in the chat, just say Fresh Path and I'll send you some more links about it. Um, but that's what we do. We get together, so we get together, take some time to dream. It's a new membership, so we're just growing it. So come on in. You can be, my Ocean 11, my first so many, and we could just build this together. Okay, so once you hopefully you do, take some time to think about where you want to go. What's your strategy? How are you going to get there? So those are the stepping stones across the river. How could you get there? And we're going to do a little bit at a time when I coach you because it feels really great to celebrate, but it also feels super overwhelming when you think of huge changes across a big river and you have a far way to go. Just break it down. And what's the approach that would actually work for you on your time that you have and the brain power that you have? Because usually our cognitive load plate, if you want to think of it like a dinner plate, is full. There's a lot of messages coming in and paging and this and that, just I tested one day and there was 12 ways for people to get to me during the day. It's nuts. So we need like communication management. We need our cognitive load managed as well during the day. And if you're, it's not happening at work, then do it personally. This is when I'm working on this. This is when I'm working on this. I don't take messages on these channels. I only take them on this, limit so that you still have cognitive flexibility room left. And then we try stuff and we change, we iterate, we look at how it went. We think about it, right? We want to have a purpose. We're going to design something according to its purpose. So again, we want to envision something super cool. What is possible? What if we did it this way? What wows somebody? What wows me? What wows are, if you're thinking about your patients or you have a business, what wows your customers, your clients? What's working? What's not working? So ask those questions. Just give yourself some time to think of the crazy answer and call it that because sometimes your brain has like limited your ability to be super flexible because it's preserving its energy. I mean, of course. So we have all these skills, and you may be really good at some of these. You want to put in the comments which one just comes easy to you. You might just be a great communicator. You might be a great executor. You might be the collaboration person. You're great to talking to so many people. You might be the one that manages your culture, just looks at the culture. Where do we want to go? What do we need more or less of? You're an action taker. So most of us are good at some of these, but we need to keep building our skills in other ones so we can look at these like Lego blocks. Which ones do we need more of? How are we going to build our adaptability? What do we need to work on here? There's always, we're always good at some things, and some things are just not our strong points. So we can build skills. We got this. Okay. Will emotions show up? Absolutely. Put in the comments, the latest emotion you had when you're thinking about change. They're like the weather, they're like clouds, they're going to float by. So just see those emotions, just acknowledge them. There they are. You may also have some mindset, thoughts about it. Like, I can never change. I can never do this. Like my colleague that instantly was crying when she had those clinical asks. Like, she didn't have the bandwidth to even process what was being asked of her and acknowledge her emotions, acknowledge her thoughts about that. And then what are her values? She wanted to live in excellence, like we talked about. You're here because you want to live in excellence. You don't want to do a crappy job, right? That's not what you're after. So we can just notice our thoughts. We can notice our feelings about a situation. They're just data, right? We're just going to think of them as data. So we could just go ahead and have this challenge here. This is an emotional adaptability challenge. It's just we're going to notice. So you can say, I notice I feel frustrated, I feel grateful, I feel concerned, I feel scared after that recent change. Like, let's think of that of my colleague who's crying when she had some RVU asks. Um, I notice I feel scared, I feel panicked, I feel upset about that recent change. I'm having the thought that this is never going to be okay. Like, I'm never going to feel good again. I'm always going to feel panicked. And you just pause and you just notice the thoughts you're having about that situation. This is from a wonderful, speaker and author, Dr. Susan David. I have her reference at the end of the talk, but she talks about this, that we need to put that pause into and break maybe those mindset challenges that we have, and then take an action. So in a perfect world, my friend, when she heard that, she would say, I notice I feel anxious and scared and worried about that recent ask. I'm having the thought that I cannot handle this. Okay, you just notice that. What action can you take? I can take 5 deep breaths. I can notice that data. I'm just putting that space in between those thoughts, because sometimes those thoughts, they're just false messages a lot of times. It's just your brain kind of trying to protect you from not changing anything. These 5 blocks, life-changing for me, honestly, life-changing. So again, this is Dr. Susan David's work. Her book's at the end called Emotional Agility. She helped me. She just broke this open for me. Thank you, Dr. David. Okay. So she's saying, and like I said, when I had some things I wanted to do, like I knew what I wanted to do, but I'm having a hesitation on taking action toward them. And I have to go to these 5 boxes for my answers. So I have an idea, I want to do X, but I'm hesitating on starting. Why? So first I have to just think about these 5 boxes. What loss will I have when I get there, when I have that change? Um, let's say me building Fresh Path MD. Okay. I have emotional resistance in doing as much as I think I would do in that. Okay. So why would I have emotional resistance with something that I think will really help you? Will help me as a women doc. It'll feel great to have a community of supportive docs together. So what's my loss? It might be a time loss. I might be concerned it's going to take time. It might be a loss of invisible, like me staying quiet so I don't put myself out there and get rejected, right? What about freedom? What freedom am I losing if I go ahead and make Fresh Path MD even bigger? Time freedom, freedom from judgment, right? Because when I make something, people will judge it. People have opinions. You may have an opinion about it. Safety. So what's the safety? So it's psychological safety. When I'm building something new, I'm showing you something that you, again, may have an opinion about. It'll be judgment. So I was reading one book, and I can't remember whose book it was, but they were like, well, what will they think? And I'm like, who actually is they? Like, if you can name the theys, or is the they just like a nebulous group of people who are going to judge you? And do you care what they think? First of all, who's they? What do we care, what they think? What are they doing? Like, are they doing anything brave? Are they building anything to help people? So that's where, this psychological safety stuff, that's where I have to just fight. Like, fight those thoughts that are in the brain, or just notice them and take that deep breath and just see if they're real. Is there any data according to those thoughts? And then the status. So whenever I'm new at something, I'm low on the status, right? Like, I'm building Fresh Path MD new. It may work. I think it will work, but it might not. So it's if I'm new at something, my status is low, right? If I've been doing it, 50 years, my status is higher. If I've already had high success and thousands of people are in Fresh Path MD, then my status is higher. But when I'm a newbie at something, then my status is lower because I'm not at the top of that food chain of whatever it is. But it's good to be new at something, right? We know it's good for our brain to keep learning. So are you new at something? Go ahead and put it in the chat. What are you a newbie at? I'm newbie at pottery. I'm going to be a newbie at bike racing. I've been using my mountain bike to race, and so I need to get a real bike so I can race. Um, I'm still pretty new at pickleball. I don't play that often. Um, I'll be new at like planning my retirement. I don't know when I'm going to retire, but it's a new thing, like to think about retirement and what will it be like. So, being new at something there's a lot of feelings with it because it's not a certain stance. It's not like my feet are planted and I know exactly what I'm doing. But that's also good because I can think about what's important to me. What do I want to have in what I'm building? What do I want? None of like Fresh Path MD is only for compassionate, kind docs. Any meanness, then you're removed from the community. It's just not my value. My value system is collaboration, kindness, compassion. So that's who's welcome in Fresh Path MD. So if that's not you, you're not welcome. Please go find another community. But that's not the kind of folks who are going to be in Fresh Path MD. So that's okay. We'll just set boundaries, right? And then belonging. Of course, we only want to belong to a kind, compassionate group. The other day, my friend said she's on a quest for good humans. And so we were talking about people at work. They're just good humans. They're just good people. They're kind. They're helpful. They're generally not loud and boisterous, but they're persistent and thoughtful and kind. That's what I would call a good human. And someone keeps up with work and does a good job at work. All those things help me see a good human. Adaptability challenge. So what if we wanted to just try to stay more adaptable, get more adaptable? We have to use words that help the brain think in positive emotional states. So we have to watch how the questions that we ask ourselves. So we can use some of these phrases. In what ways might I transform something? If you want to say your clinic or your patient experience or the way your patients check in or your business, or like me, I want to transform a membership for women docs. I want to build something that's supportive that also gives women docs ideas on how to build a business and grow a business, because that gives women docs, number one, opportunities to keep learning. Number two, opportunities for freedom and flexibility. And number three, an amazing way to leave an impact as a women doc. And I took zero business classes as a woman doc, so that I had to learn, I had business coaches. I learned to become a business coach through Hello Seven, and I've had a business now for 7 years, 6.5 years at this point. Um, Later this fall will be 7 years, and it's still going. We're still moving along. And so, I have that. I have that track record. So in what ways might I transform women docs knowing about business? In what ways might I surprisingly change? Like, I didn't know I was going to form a business 20 years ago, but it was always something in my mind I was curious about and I wanted to learn more about. And these are questions you can ask yourself. Why do you need to finalize that project? Who will you help? How will it change things for you? How will this happen? What action steps will you take? What team will you build? How might you transform things? How might you surprisingly change? How might you finalize this project? So let's just give our brains some time to think about these things. How do we make this easier for ourselves to change? Again, remember, we said in coaching, we absolutely start with this. Set your vision. Where do you want to go? A lot of us were just like, we wanted to graduate med school and then residency. Some of us did a fellowship, and now we just want to be staff. And that's like it. It's like something falls off the cliff, it's just, then you're staff. Then what? Then how do you keep learning? Where do you want to go from there? Do you want to be in academic medicine? You want to be in private practice? You want to start a business? Reach out to me. This is what I do. I help docs think about and build a business. How do you set your priorities? What value would it have to you to have freedom and flexibility and to feel good? What roadmap do you need? Do you need to build some markers? Do you need those stones across the river? You want to build a business, or you want to feel flexible, you want to feel like you're growing, like life is exciting. How do you do it? So we set the roadmap. And then what are you going to measure? Are you going to just measure how you feel or what you get done? Clarify those expectations, because that's when we start like, I knew it wouldn't work. We have a lot of enthusiasm when we think of something new, and then we see, oh, this is hard. So then our enthusiasm level goes way down. We get very pessimistic about it. Then we try something and it works. We get a little bit more optimistic. So there's a lot of thoughts when we're trying something new, right? So we can build those skills and connect the systems. We can design what we want, connect the systems we need. We talked about the skills we need to build. We can focus on the processes we're going to take. We can stay flexible, right? We can iterate, we can change something, and we can build our own culture of learning. In order to be an adaptable doc, you need to be a lifelong learner. You need to be courageous enough to apply your learnings. We can all sit here and read books all day, but we actually have to apply it to truly learn what we're doing. You have to be willing to adjust to change. If you don't have these, what does it feel like? It feels you have a lot of frustration, stagnation, isolation. This is what we feel like when we're not lifelong learners, when we're not courageous, and we're not willing to change. So where can we start? Well, Fresh Path MD is here for you. We're gonna, we're gonna do monthly challenges, just nano challenges, a little bit each week, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's a supportive community for women docs to focus, to build support, create an impactful life, right? You have very particular strengths and gifts, and I want you living fully in your gifts and strengths because the world needs you. We're going to share tips and tricks and laughs along the way. This is not only serious. We learn better when we're having some fun, right? There are serious topics at times, right? But we can have fun and do this together. The false message, like the false narrative of the culture of medicine, is that you have to figure this out yourself, and you don't. So this is an example of one of our adaptive, our challenges, So in the month of March, we're still going on, so you can join us and jump in here and finish this up. But we figured out your own adaptability quotient. Then we did some designing for you on where your purpose is, how to build your emotional resilience under the pressure of healthcare, and how to integrate it and take courageous actions. Again, we can read books all day, but we have to take some actions. I could share this with you once you're in Fresh Path MD. And, each week we're going to do a quick little teaching, little handout, little replay of the master class, short reflections. One small behavioral experiment could take you 5-10 minutes, a micro commitment that you're going to try. Because we know small actions that we do regularly can lead to literally a change in the brain, our neural changes, and that's called learning. That's long-term potentiation, that the nerves work differently after we learn, because that means we've done it so many times that it's now part of our pathways. So, and then you'll get a weekly checklist, for the month so that you can make sure that you're staying on track. A lot of times if things are loose and we think we're going to do it at some point, we get things done, but you'll get a handout so that you have a weekly checklist. All right. So, we're going to do stuff like this, like the adaptability quotient. What is it? Understand how adaptable you are. Again, we do not judge in Fresh Path MD and Brain Fresh. No, we just see these data points, and then we can build our cognitive flexibility, our emotional regulation. We can experiment a little bit. We can focus on our meaning, just orient toward what brings us meaning. And then, when we're always stressed, AQ is less because we're in this threat circuitry. We don't have our big thinking part of the brain working well if we're only in stress. It's just staying in the limbic system. So, prediction errors feels unsafe. Identity feels rigid when we're in that chronic stress. So when I coach docs, when you join Fresh Path MD, we're just going to break out of those, well-known patterns where you feel stuck. Okay. And then you could ask yourself some questions. If you're a writer, it's highly recommended you get out a pen and a piece of paper and just write, answer these questions when you have time, because you get some personal insight, right? And then just throw it away. You don't have to, focus on it forever, but just what is going on? Where are we rigid because of stress? Where am I like in this? This is the only way thinking. What am I attached to that I'm just really not willing to give up because maybe those 5 boxes we talked about? So what if we just had a little adjustment to our adaptability at 10%? We're a little bit more flexible in these areas where maybe we move a meeting, we delegate one task, we try one new clinical thing, or when we never say yes in the hallway. If someone's running by asking you to do something, you use this line. Let me think about that. Thank you. I'll get back to you next week. So we can do tiny changes and we can commit to practicing flexibility and not this endurance that that healthcare really demands of us. We want to stay flexible. We want to stay cognitively flexible. We can learn, we can apply, we can adjust, we can keep it simple, right? So join us in Fresh Path. This is where we're going to just break it down, teeny little actions each week. If you're already here, thank you. Welcome, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Just reach out with any questions you might have. Um, and then go ahead and put in the comment what's your best takeaway from this. Something that hits you. A lot of times it's just one thing that hits you, or maybe many things. So feel free to share it in the chat or put it in the Brain Fresh community place so you can chat if you're already in Fresh Path. Here's some references for you. And the books I talked about, that emotional agility, Dr. Susan David is the one that I quoted a few times. But all these books have been helpful to me. So I highly recommend checking them out. All right, you got this. You can develop skills to deal with the world as it is. All right, so reach out with questions and thanks for being here. I appreciate y'all.